What is up? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day. Back here with some more Resident Evil gameplay for you. And then we talk about why I actually hope that Jill Valentine, after knowing the things we do now with Resident Evil Requiem, why I hope Jill Valentine is not in the game in any shape, form whatsoever. Now, keep in mind that I'm not saying this because I have anything against Jill. Quite the opposite. I love Jill. She's one of my favorite characters in Resident Evil. But knowing what we know now, I just feel like at this point, it kind of would just seem more tacked on and pointless and just a, quick, hot minute moment for nothing. Because now that we have confirmed that Grace and Leon are the two main characters and the only playable characters, what's the point of having Jill Valentine in this game? There's really only, I guess, small segments or stuff you could have them in. I know a lot of people have argued, you could still have her in, but I want to address those moments right now because one of the big things that people are talking about is that she should be back there because it has to do with Raccoon City. It's a city that she did live in and stuff, but with the story they're going with Requiem obviously being tales about Grace and her personal past with her mother and stuff, and then Leon with the whole cover-up and what happened with Raccoon City and stuff and how he still hasn't kind of gotten over that whole ordeal in City. It's always in his past and stuff. It just seems like with that type of story, it's not something that I feel like is something you could tell with Jill. I mean, her being there, I'm not saying it would be a bad thing. I'm not saying it'd be terrible and I'd be tuned out for it. But with what they're going with this story, it just seems like Jill has kind of already moved on from Raccoon City. And this is more, I guess, up Leon's alley with the government. And then they have a brand new character. It just feels like it would be tacked on. But I know what you're thinking. Okay, you don't have a playable character. Maybe they could be in there for a short segment, a short sequence. And this is where I get to my biggest problem. Because I'm not the one asking for a short sequence in a segment with Jill. Because Jill, to me, is a main character. She's a big deal. When she shows up, it should be a big deal. I don't like the fact that people want to relegate Jill to just being a cameo or a 5-minute sequence. To me, that's just disrespectful. When Jill shows up, she should be the main character of a game, or one of the main characters of the game, one of the playable main characters of the game. She shouldn't be regulated to, let's just have her in a 5-minute sequence or something. And you might be thinking, well, what's the problem with that? Why am I so against it, up in arms about it? Like, would it be the worst thing in the world if I see her in a 5-minute sequence in this game Requiem? Would that really ruin everything? It wouldn't, but it's just more of, I feel like Capcom, and once again, a lot of this goes with Capcom. I don't like the treatment they've treated Jill over the years. And I feel like they would be the ones to be like, hey, we included her for 5 minutes in Requiem. People liked it. So you know what? We did them something good. Now we don't have to use the character again because we already used them there and that's it. I feel like they'd be that type of company that would do that, considering how little they seem to do anything with Jill or a lot of characters outside of Leon and stuff. But I also want to give another example of why giving a small segment is not necessarily a good thing and how it can be contagious, because I want to bring up a character who needs no introduction, who is an all-time great character in Resident Evil, who has gotten this same treatment that apparently people want for Jill, supposedly, because even though she's not having a playable segment, they'd be alright with Jill just appearing or having a cutscene or something like that. And that'd be none other than Chris. And the thing with Chris is, in his last two appearances in the Resident Evil continuity in terms of the games, not movies and stuff, he has basically been dubbed into just a small cameo at the very end of Resident Evil 7, which, let's just be honest, no one talks about, because most people still talk about how they cannot even recognize with the design. I mean, remember when this was first revealed, people were talking about, oh, is this a clone? This can't be Chris. Like, who is this guy? This isn't Redfield. Does he have like a secret brother or something? Like, this is not Chris Redfield I grew up with. And then they had the equally forgettable DLC, which is very, very short, that doesn't really test it. Nothing really of major value happens. You have a few moments or breadcrumbs, but no one really talks about this thing at all. And it's not that I think it was bad or terrible. It's just, all right, you play it once and you just move on from it. That's really the whole gist of this DLC. But then you get to the part where you finally give him, I guess, a little bit more of a amped up stake moment is Village, which basically overhyped the hell out of him. But He's in a few cutscenes. Even though he's on the cover of the game, he's barely in the game. He has a short segment playable at the end of the game. And yeah, that's basically Chris, what's happened to him in the last, decade plus since his last full official campaign in Resident Evil 6. He's basically gotten nothing. Like, his biggest campaign is this DLC right here, which nobody talks about, which is criminally short. You compare that to, like, Separate Ray's DLC, it's like night and day. But yeah, ChrisRedfield, a character used to be a big deal, a main character with playable campaigns and stuff. The length of a campaign has just been regulated to just cameos, cutscenes, and, a little bit of a playable segment that's so short and just forgettable. Not to mention the respect or I guess I should say disrespect, because most people don't like Chris from 7 or 8 that much, especially in 8. They don't like some of the decisions he made, some of the things that he did, and think he should have gone about certain things a different way, especially with Ethan and stuff. But maybe if he had the entirety of the game, or at least half the game or something, maybe he could have done a lot better so we could at least understand him and stuff. But unfortunately, that's not what happens. And that's my fear, I ultimately fear with Jill, and why I don't want that with Jill. It's just from the standpoint is that I don't want these characters to just be cameo people. It's why I think a lot of people are a little bit pushback with the Leon segment. I don't have a problem that Leon's a main character. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But that love should go to other characters that are OG iconic as well and stuff. As well as other characters who may have not had that moment in the sun ever since their first debut. But people like Chris and Jill and Claire, they're not cameo characters. They're main characters. You ask any people that are diehard Resident Evil fans, they're going to tell you why, and a lot of times it's because of those characters, and that's what I'm afraid of. I don't want that. I'm not a crazy Chris fan, but the more I come full circle with him, I kind of feel bad for him. It's like, dude, come on now, you got to do more than that. Like, you have potential to do so many interesting storylines, but you just have them in there for 5-10 minutes, if you're playable or not, or just cameos, and in short segments that are just over before they even begin. I don't want that for Jill Valentine. Jill Valentine should have full main character segments. ChrisRedfield should have full main character segments. I mean, and if you think I'm so being kind of crazy and stuff, imagine the roles were reversed. Imagine it was Leon having those short cameo segments. You can't tell me you wouldn't make a lot of fans of Leon mad, because I'm a Leon fan. I wouldn't want him to be there in a cameo. You bring in Leon, I expect to play as Leon. You have Jill, I expect to play as Jill. You have Chris, Claire, whoever, I expect to play as them. I don't expect to look at him through a cutscene and just be like, oh, wow, and stuff. But overall, I just feel like that's my problem why I don't want Jill in Requiem. She's not going to fit the story they're telling outside of just appearing for a moment. Now, you can mention her, have a file or something. That's perfectly fine. So if that's what you want, okay, whatever. I just don't want them to just be like, here she is, and we finally see a design for her, because I think that's another thing. A lot of people want to see a new design, and I get that and understand that. I don't have a problem with that, because I've heard some people say, if they do have, I don't know if they won't recommend, but they do have a mercenary mode and stuff, it'd be cool if you had all the iconic characters for that. That'd be awesome. But I don't want characters like Jill, etc., getting the short end of the stick. They should have full-length campaigns. I don't get why people say they have to appear in Requiem, even though they're not a main character, they're not a playable character, but they have to appear. If that's what you want, more power to you, but I want more than that. I want a campaign, and I don't want Capcom to be like, well, we gave you a 5-minute segment, what more do you want? No, I want a full-length campaign, full game, main character, respected game with Jill Valentine in it. That's what I want. It's not going to happen in Requiem. That's okay, because I'm excited. Hopefully it's going to be a solid, good Resident Evil. We'll see what do with Grace and Leon. It's just Jill isn't going to get the nod for this one. But only time will tell. At the end of the day, though, as I like to say, this is my opinion. I'd like to hear your guys' opinion. How do you feel about this? Do you think now that Jill is confirmed not to be a main playable character in this game, that's with Leon and Grace, do you think she should be in the game at all? Or is someone that's just she's not going to be a major factor in the game, why should they appear at all? I want them to be in it if they are a main character, or if you do like to see them in a cameo, let me know why you would want that, and what would you want the cameo to be or do, and why is that satisfying outside of being like a main character in a playable thing. Let me know down in the comment section down below. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video, and hopefully I can see you guys back in the next one. Thanks, and I'll see you all later. Peace.